Welcome to session 30 of Living is Dying. My name is Sering. Today it gives me much pleasure to welcome back Jakob Leschly to the Living is Dying program, along with Jangchub for discussion on Chapter 15, Tantrikas, Preparation for Death. And Ross and Annie Champagne are our tech support. We begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and other lands and recognise their connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. You'll have to bear with us just for a few moments. Jangchub's having some technical difficulties and Jakob is trying to help her sort it out. And while that's happening, I'd just like to say that it's some time since Jakob has appeared on Living is Dying. He's been in Europe and engaged with other teaching programs, and with only 4 more sessions until we complete our book study, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Jakob, for your support and encouragement in getting this program up and running. So many people have benefited from the Living is Dying program, and we've all learnt so much, including us, the presenters. And we'll just hold on a moment before we hand over to Jakob to begin Chapter 15.
I think Ross is going to is Ross going to share the text, or should I just bring it up myself?
No, Ross is going to share it.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Oh, sorry. I'm a bit flustered.
Just a moment.
No worries.
Oh.
Here we are.
Well, no, we're not.
No.
No, something's come up from Zoom.
We have Guru.
It's one of those days. The technology.
I'm happy to share if you want me to.
No, it's okay. I don't know why this has come up.
We have Guruji. That's all we need.
Okay.
Hey.
Thank you, Jakob.
But if you want, I can bring the text up.
No, it's there.
It's there. I can only see Guruji.
Oh, sorry. I'll have to do it again.
I mean, I'm happy to just see Guruji.
Oh, God.
Ah, there we are. Okay, cool. So, for Tantrikas, actually, what do we mean with Tantrikas? Of course, that means those of us who are inclined towards approaching the path from the point of view that we possess purity as basic to who we are. I mean, we're obviously humbly aware of the fact that we're confused sentient beings with all sorts of conflicting emotions. And on the basis of these conflicting emotions, we also have patterns of action, which then drive particular experiences. So that's essentially the definition of a sentient beings. We're ruled by fundamentally ignorance, and then from that, kleshas and karma. But we might, on the basis of inspiration from our teacher, and on the basis of being somewhat processed in the path, we might have the inspiration that there's abiding innate purity that is what we truly are. And that is where we don't just approach the path in terms of us gradually becoming clearer, becoming less confused, but we also at the same time understand that there's an abiding innate condition that is uncontaminated by our confusion. And so when we make that our path, and particularly when this path becomes real for us, and that's where we engage in the tantric preliminary practices like Ngundro that prepare us for such an approach, and then from the guru receive empowerment, then we sustain a lifestyle of continually coming back to this purity that's innate to what we truly are. And that innately means that our nature, which on the surface, as ordinary sentient beings, is undergoing these continually changes, such as being born as a human being and then dying and again reborn and dying and so on, undergoing these continually births and death, re-embodying ourselves life after life. We understand that that happens, but at the same time also there's something which is this unchanging underlying nature, and that is the scope of the Vajrayana path. And that's what we rely on. Insight into that unchanging nature is what we seek to integrate throughout our life, and it's what we rely on when we then pass on. And this is then where Rinpoche here is reminding us of what we want to do when we die. And that's where Rinpoche says, for practitioners, and that means practitioners then who have relied on this Vajrayana path. He says, remember the guru, 1, the view, 2, and the deity, 3. He says, if you follow the Vajrayana path, there are 3 crucial things to think about and remember as you prepare for death. The guru, the person who introduced you to the nature of the mind, the view of emptiness, shunyata, where your mind should dwell, and the deity with whom you became acquainted in this life through practice, who acts as a point of reference and reminds you about the union of emptiness and clarity. Now, remember, when we talk about 3 things here, we are actually just talking about one single thing, namely the nature of mind. But the practice of that, the ramifications of that insight is understanding that whatever appears is merely a display, and as such, there has no inherent existence. And that's the view of emptiness, where we understand that nothing possesses the reality that it appears to have. And that's where we need to be a bit mature and begin to actually investigate beyond just the appearance. And having that insight then into the view of emptiness on the basis of understanding the nature of mind, then we also, as skillful means, we are accompanied with the practice of deity, which is again engaging our body, our speech, and our mind within a framework that continually comes back to this insight. That's why we could think of ourselves as, I could think of myself as Jakob Leschly, practicing the nature of mind. And I would think, goodness gracious, how could I possibly do that? But if I think of myself as Padmasambhava or Yeshe Tsogyal, and as such, I have a deity, then I think of myself with that Vajra pride, that sense of my innate disposition is inseparable from Yeshe Tsogyal. And as such, I engage with the nature of mind from that perspective. I engage with the insight into the phenomena as being ultimately the unity of appearance and emptiness. And that's where the deity is this point of reference that continually brings us back to the core of the practice. So that's where the practitioner then would want to have this, you could say, unified vision. But of course, of these, we would say then the memory of the guru is something that brings us back to that insight. And so Rinpoche writes, of these 3, the guru is probably the easiest to remember because you will have met your guru during your life and therefore know what the guru looks and sounds like. As a Tantrika, you will also have trained your mind in Vajrayana visualization and accomplishment practices. Now, what we mean with Vajrayana visualization is continually coming back to reality as it is, because we have a very poor grip on reality. We have a very limited perception of our world and ourselves and those around us, because we're continually veiled by our projections. Vajrayana visualization is to go beyond our projections and begin to acknowledge the purity that's innate to the phenomenal world, the purity that's innate to ourselves, and the purity that's innate to everyone we encounter. And that purity we sustain throughout the practice of Vajrayana visualization. Here, visualization doesn't mean imagining something that's not really there, like putting on some rose-colored glasses. It means to continually come back to recognition of the unity of appearance and emptiness, to come back to understanding phenomena exist, free from our ordinary projections. And that's what we mean with visualization. It's a bit like if we ever have hepatitis, we're going to see white surfaces as yellow. And we know that even though we're seeing things as yellow, they actually are white. Similar with Vajrayana visualization, we might see phenomena, the world and others around us on the basis of our karmic projection. But we know that innately phenomena are pure and free from these projections. So that's where we engage in that through the sadhana, through the accomplishment practices, which simply just means engaging in this, familiarizing ourselves with this kind of vision, integrating that. And that's the accomplishment practices. Rinpoche says these practices help you get used to the appearance of the guru and the deity, and to become familiar with their names, activities, and manifestation. This kind of practice is called sadhana. And that is integrating this vision of the nature of our mind in all activities. Rinpoche says practicing a sadhana isn't just about reading a text out loud. You also think about the physical appearances of the deity and the guru, and you recite the mantras. And we do this in order to not just leave this as a vague notion, but actually make it vivid. Rinpoche says, as you experience the process of dying, the best thing you can do is hold the images of the deity and the guru in your mind and remember as many of their attributes, colors, and activities as you can. For instance, the emanation and reconvergence of rainbow-colored rays of light. So as we're passing away, we want to have something that we just hold on to very simply, and that's where these features from our sadhana can bring us back to the presence of the teacher and the deity. Rinpoche says, as you invoke the deity, it's extremely important that you feel absolutely confident that you are the deity. This is what Vajrayana calls Vajra pride. Now, Vajra pride has nothing to do with being proud. It has simply to do with acknowledging our fundamental worth, that we possess Buddha nature, that the superficial appearances of our ever-shifting, what we could call karmic embodiment, our body, our speech, and particularly our mind that is ever shifting, confused, and so on. That's all very well, but what we truly are is this abiding quality of awakening, and that's what we refer to as deity. So that recognition of the nature of mind and the uncontaminated purity, that recognition as that being what we truly are, that's what we need to remember, Vajra pride. So Rinpoche says, this is extremely important to have that confidence. He says, most important of all is that you receive the Abhisheka's self-empowerment from the Guru and mix your mind with the Guru's mind again and again. So again, Abhisheka is where we consider that the Guru anoints us or empowers us to be what we truly are. And we then, on the basis of that, mingle our own mind with the sublime wisdom of the teacher. We can recognize qualities in the teacher, but it's only because we have those qualities ourselves that we're able to recognize them in the Guru. And so as we have devotion to the Guru, simply as an external mirror of our qualities, we then settle into the freedom from an external reference of a Guru and simply settle into the wisdom of our own nature as inseparable from the Guru's wisdom. So that kind of lifting ourselves out of confusion and, you could say, being the best that we are, coming back to connecting with reality, that's what we as a Tantrika aspire to do. He says, Rinpoche says, the kind of practitioner of the sacred texts that describe as having superior faculties. Rinpoche then says, if you have prepared yourself for death by practicing Powa in this life, then by all means, once the process of death has begun, do a Powa practice for yourself. If you know a good Lama, yogi, yogini, monk or nun, you could ask them to do Powa for you. Mind you, it should be said that this is something that requires very capable, extraordinary beings. It's not like any old person who's sort of done a bit of poa is able to do this. This is this to guide others through the process of death, through confusion and into liberation, is not something that just anybody can do. This is the scope of very great masters. Then Rinpoche says, and don't worry if the practitioner isn't at your bedside as they do the practice, because poa can be done at a distance. So this is where we, particularly in the Vajrayana, people will call up there or have friends call up the guru and so forth. Rinpoche says, I must stress, though, that the path of poa is for practitioners with superior faculties. This has nothing to do with being highly educated or clever. Practitioners are not said to have superior faculties because they have finished the Nundro or spent decades studying Buddhism. The only faculty that is absolutely indispensable is devotion. Without devotion and a wholehearted belief in the path of poa, this practice simply won't work. And these days, it's very difficult to find anyone with this kind of devotion. So, of course, what we mean with devotion is that openness to the teacher, not just viewing the teacher as some external savior, but really a deep respect and interest in which we mingle with our own mind, with the teacher, and particularly then with a strong confidence in the nature of the particular path of poa. So then it says, practitioners with middling faculties. So it says, remember the guru. The chances of an inexperienced, mediocre practitioner being able to remember the view as they die, or the details of the deity's appearances and attributes, or even the name of the deity, are slim. Rely instead on the most trustworthy of all paths, which is to pray to your guru. The guru in this case is the guru or teacher you have met during this lifetime and with whom you have talked and interacted. As you die, pray to your guru, receive the 4 abhishekas and mix your mind with the mind of your guru and so on. And this is where the modern person needs to understand we're not talking about an external savior, but we're talking about somebody that reflects an internal disposition and an internal quality that is unconfused. And so while we might not have cultivated this in the sense of abiding in the yoga that settles within that confidence in our own purity, we might not have trained in that, but then at least thanks to that inner purity, we have seen that purity as it's reflected in the outer guru. So when we say praying to our guru, it's not like in a context that I think there's some external savior, but it's rather on the basis of our thoughts of this guru that we connect with the purity that is innately ours. And so that's where us then, who have limited sort of realization, we simply just do this practice of continually recollecting the teacher and connecting with that. Is that where I stop? Or do I continue? Do I go on?
Hi, Jakob. Yes, please. Jangchub's still having trouble.
All right. So I just keep reading here?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. So how to assist the Tantrika through the process of dying. Now, this is very interesting. This is where we could actually be of help to our brothers and sisters who are passing away. And that's where it's kind of a shame that Jangchub is having some Zoom issues, but because she's actually has some experience with that. I've had a little bit of experience myself with just being present as someone was passing away. And particularly I had the privilege once to be there when Tukupema Wangel was assisting one of his disciples who was passing away. And I remember Rinpoche just standing there and actually yelling into the person's ears, "Don't forget your teacher." You know, you could say the vital signs had already ceased, but there was this Tukupema Wangel very insistently into his ears saying, "Remember your teacher, remember the view." There's this wonderful story of Tuku Ujin, who was reminding his teacher, Samten Gyatso, of the nature of mind. Now, Samten Gyatso was rather a great siddha, a great accomplished master. And there's this wonderful story of Tuku Ujin then. And he, as Samten Gyatso had passed away, the vital signs had ceased and all of that, that he says, you know, just remember, remember the view. And even though the vital signs had ceased, it said that something Gyatso sort of woke up and looked at him and says, "That's all right, I got it." Anyway, here it says, Vajra brothers and sisters who have a close relationship with the dying Tantrika can help by reminding them of all the important points of the practice. So this is where what we've just talked about in terms of the introduction to the nature of mind, remembering shunyata, remembering deity, is all, you could say, present in the details of what we now are looking at. And that is essentially letting go and settling into awakened qualities. So remember that life is an illusion, a dream. And that's important. And that is what we hopefully have familiarized ourselves somewhat in this life. Simply that, yes, what we mean with illusion or in a dream is that it's something that appears, yet it doesn't possess the solidity that we think it has. Surrender to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And again, this is our refuge. There's one thing that we can trust. That's the Buddha. And one thing that we can rely on in terms of guidance is the Dharma. And one thing we can rely on in terms of companionship is the Sangha. So that's where the Buddha embodies the truth, the nature realities. There's a lot of confusion in this world, but there's one person that is not confused, and that's the Buddha. So with that, and that is where also in this life, we need to have actually cut through all the confusion, and particularly in the modern world where there's so many know-it-alls that will propose all sorts of insights, that we really understand what's what, and we have the discerning that appreciates the Buddha. Aroused bodhicitta is coming back to the view, this greatness of mind that is not limited to just our own cause, but is very much infused with a greatness of vastness and courage that goes beyond just our own self-interest, that embraces others and is free from the ordinary dualistic fixation. Then, particularly then for the Tantrikas, remember the appearance and activities of the deity and the sound of the mantra. Again, the quality of, say, for example, Avalokiteshvara, the compassion, and the mantra. The moment that we think of the deity, ordinary perceptions dissolve. The moment we chant the mantra, our ordinary energy is purified. And then it says, Rinpoche says, dwell in whichever view is most familiar, Madhyamika, Mahamudra, or Mahasandhi. So we could have been introduced to this abiding innate simplicity, this condition that is free from the confusion of ordinary thoughts. And we have been introduced this through the Madhyamika teaching, or Mahamudra, or Mahasandhi. Whichever then we have familiarity with, and then we remember the view of the union of emptiness and clarity, that we have this cognition that knows, there's a knowing that's there, and yet it's completely intangible. Just settling into that knowing in which there's no duality of self and other. And finally, remember your guru and intensify your feelings of devotion. Again, there's one person that we can rely on, and that's the guru. And us having devotion is remaining open, focused on that greatness that the guru embodies. Inevitably, when we're dying, we're going to be very worried and concerned, and there's all sorts of feelings and confusion. And that's where it's so important that prior to that, we've simplified and we have an appreciation of the teacher and the spirit that the teacher embodies, and making sure that spirit is something that we recognize within ourselves and as being the most important, you say, red thread in our existence. And that's where that openness and deep respect, what we call devotion then, is something that guides us. So Rinpoche writes, for dying Tantrika, the most important object of practice to remember and think about is the guru. So recite the name of the dying person's guru loudly and clearly. From time to time, you could sing the name or even shout it. There you go. So that's again, there we are with a brother or sister, and where we remind them of the teacher. And like I was just describing, this is something that we can continually remind them about through singing, shouting, whatever it takes. Then it says, remind the dying Tantrika about the process of dissolution. So there is a detailed description, but you know, what we talk about is essentially the physical aspects and the energetic aspects that take place as the physical body is essentially collapsing. And that's where we're progressing towards that place where consciousness and body, they basically separate. But there's a dissolution that takes place. And this also is something that we can observe in persons that die. It says here, and this is where we remind also the person that's dying that this is what's taking place. So if we could remind them of that, then they're comfortable and have some sense of what's going on. So here then we say, as the earth element dissolves and you experience the secret sign of shimmering mirages, visualize your guru in your heart and generate devotion. So this is where there's going to be visual phenomena, sparks and smoke and things like that happen. And that's where the instruction there to the Tantrika who's passing away is to, at that time then, when the earth element is dissolving, to visualize the guru in your heart and to, again, generate devotion. As the water element dissolves and you experience the secret signs of wisps of mist or smoke, sorry, that's when the water element dissolves. Visualize your guru at your navel and pray to him. Then, as the fire element dissolves and you experience the secret signs of sparks of light like fireflies, visualize your guru at your forehead. As the air element dissolves and you see a dazzling bright light close up, try to transfer your mind into the mind of your guru. So gradually, as the elements dissolve, then finally we try to leave the body through the aperture, the upper aperture of our body. So it says, remind the dying Tantrika that everything they see, particularly the secret signs, is a manifestation of mind, also known as the display of their wisdom mind, their rikpa, luminosity, dhammadhatu, dhammata, dhammakaya, or Tathagata, and so on. What we mean with all these names for that uncontaminated ground of our being is simply just the nature of what we truly are and connecting with that. And it's within that ground of being that everything arouses. So whatever we're experiencing will simply come from that place. And to settle into this space. And we as practitioners, we might have been accustomed to referring to this nature in so many different ways. Wisdom mind, rikpa, luminosity, dhammadhatu, dhammata, dhammakaya, tathagata, and so on. Whatever it is, however it is that we understand it, that simplicity, that ground, that uncontaminated essence of who we are, this is then where we understand everything is arising from that. We understand that whatever we see in terms of our perceptions never moves from this ground. Rinpoche says the term you use will depend on the lineage and tradition the person follows. And that's why it's good to know what your brother or sister, how they might understand this. So during the process of dying and at the moment of death, every one of us will be afraid. I mean, we're nervous. Sometimes we're moving to a new town. People get nervous just they're moving house, just that they're moving into a new neighborhood or stuff like that. People get uneasy about these things, selling their house or, their house burning down and all of that. So even in this life, with our minor sort of experiences of loss and you could say losing ground, we can imagine what it's like then when we die. And that's where probably in this life, it's good if we begin to develop some courage and you could say robustness with regards to the changes that constantly happen, but on a very easy and small level. But as far as losing our body, then most of us will be a bit uneasy, if not, afraid. And there's many stories about persons who die who are seriously afraid as they pass away. Even I remember there's a story in the life story of Khenpo Ngakchung, even one of the great lamas, he's sort of, as he was passing away, and the one lama says, "So are you prepared?" And the lama says, "Well, nobody likes to leave." So anyway, this will happen, and Rinpoche says, we will probably also be in physical pain and experience all the other sufferings that accompany death. But as Dharma practitioners, we must take advantage of everything that happens to us. So try, and this again is us instructing our friend who's passing away. So try simply to look at and watch any pain you feel without getting caught up in your hopes and fears. In fact, try to watch everything that happens to you without getting entangled in any of it. This is what tantric practitioners can do for one another. Okay. How are we going?
Okay, thank you, Jakob. Jangchub has solved her problems.
Oh, wonderful.
And thank you so much.
Sure.
It's great to have you back again.
It's nice to be here. It's really lovely to see you.
And Jangchub's going to speak from her experience with assisting dying Sangha members and on remembering the Guru and how Vajra brothers and sisters can help by reminding them of all the important points of the practice. So over to you, Jangchub.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I think from my side is that I've been very fortunate to, and honoured actually, to being able to be invited to Dharma brothers and sisters during their passing. It's always a learning process and a great honour to be in that particular state of mind with someone. One of the first things that I think is really important when being with someone is first creating a kind of presence with the person, your loving loved one or your Dharma brother or sister. And by staying present means by being completely there for that person. It's like dropping everything else from your mind, and whatever arises from your Dharma practices and reminding that person of their commitment to their Dharma is extremely important. By you remaining present and then reminding them of the practice by different ways, depending upon what practice the person's been doing. And one of the best ways is also their heart practice. If you know what their heart sadhana is, you can read that sadhana so that they remember, and you can read it loud, soft, whatever's appropriate for the situation. Sit close to their head so that you're close to ear contact with them, and create an environment that they're comfortable in. And that's also by looking at subtle signs with their body, making sure that they're as comfortable as they can be during that transition. Sometimes it's like just adjusting a little bit of a pillow, or one of the things that I found was really good was to have some water and a little sponge, and I put some dutsi in it. It's blessed substances that are very blessed by lamas in pujas and things like that. And I've been given it from one of our teachers, and I put that in the sponge and sometimes just moisten the lips a little bit from time to time. So that's a sort of comfort aspect, and also creating an environment in the room. I found that's really important. When someone opens their eyes, that they see their lama or their yidam and in front of them on the wall somewhere where they can focus on it, or sometimes just showing them a picture of their lama is really helpful. And reading Refuge and Bodhicitta from time to time is also helpful, reminding them of their refuge, as well as doing the sadhana. And the dying process may go on for days, so you might alternate with different things, which I found to be the case. Usually it's over a period of 2 days, or 3 days sometimes, sort of quite close to the dying process. Reading the Bardo, there are many different versions of the Bardo teachings now, and they're in the back of the book here that Rinpoche has put, Living is Dying. There's a number there that one could refer to. Making a recording. This kind of happens spontaneously by accident or something, maybe by that person's good karma that I was looking after at that time. I was with them, and all of a sudden I remembered that I had a recording of Khensa Rinpoche actually teaching on that particular topic that this person, I know her inner practice. So I was able to put Rinpoche's recording very close to her ear, and I could see that there was a subtle response, because by this stage she was already going between in and out of the Bardo, kind of sometimes in the Bardo, sometimes back here, going backwards and forth. So I could actually see in her eyes that what was taking place. Amazingly beneficial. So maybe for us brothers and sisters in the Dharma, that we load something like that on our phone. We're basically connected to our phone all the time. So we may as well be connected to our Lama on that phone as well for those sort of situations. And also having the chakras that you place upon the body and the heart, to have, to be prepared to have something like that. I carry one in my purse. I carry one in the car also, and with an instruction to place it, if I die, to place it on my heart. And you place it with the, you have the diagram and it's facing upwards, and you place that up on the heart. In that situation, once the person's passed away. Just as the person's passed away, I also, have been in the habit of just touching the person, tapping the person on the crown of the head, reminding them to exit through that pathway. So that's also a wonderful thing to do. And the other thing to do, if you can remember, is sometimes to do the Shinrasik mantra. The Shinrasik mantra closes the doorway to the 6 realms of samsaric existence. So that's a really beautiful mantra to do. And especially for our, animal friends, it's something that is very powerful. It's been, some lamas have told me that is a really beneficial thing to do when the animal's dying, and also when it's not dying, when it's just have the opportunity to be around an animal, to do the Shinrasik or Mani Padme Hum mantra. And yes, remembering, reminding them of their Lama is the most important, and the Yidam that they're practicing, and just to let them also have this reassurance that the Lama is with them, that they are, emerging into this particular space of compassion and wisdom, that they're going beyond duality, and that pretty much is part of the sadhana, where we rest in the nature of the mind at the end of the sadhana, and just resting. And then from time to time, as Jakob was talking, Tukupema sometimes shouted, perhaps that would be really skillful when the person's very medicated, and to wake them up to now and again, to shout would be really like, it's like cutting through any kind of dreaming that might be distracting and so forth, and basically keeping your Dhamma and brothers, sisters focused on their path and their practice. So I think for the time being, because I think we're kind of running out of time a little bit today, that's what I can remember right now. And also, once the person has passed away, people continue to read the Bardo teachings, can continue to read their heart practice, continue with the mantra. And also, I'd like to introduce Vajrasattva as part of the practice. Vajrasattva is the Buddha of purification. And we can also do Vajrasattva mantra and Vajrasattva practice on behalf of our brother and sister. To be, I don't know, seem to be slipping down further and further into the couch. Okay. For our brothers and sisters to purify any kind of obstacles. Vajrasattva is so important in people have a connection with Vajrasattva in the purification practices, and particularly, that's all we're really doing in Dharma is purifying our kleshas and our confused mind, and our grasping mind, and our dualistic thinking. So, as you can see, Vajrasattva is a white Buddha. And here, I think, just for a short time, without going to too much detail, is that the Vajrasattva purifies all the circumstances around the death, around the kind of things that get in the way, the obstacles that can arise when we're preparing for someone's funeral, we're preparing for their sometimes their will to be carried out. Sometimes with people, our dear ones passing away, things aren't always left so clear. So there's a lot of misunderstandings that happen amongst family. To purify that sort of outer circumstances, and also to purify our inner karmas, and one of those ways. Hello, come on. Hello. Okay. I had expected visitor there. Anyway, maybe that's a sign. So we think of Vajrasattva as that purification deity. And as you saw that beautiful picture of Vajrasattva on the crown of our head, and we say the Vajrasattva mantra of Vajrasattva. And by saying the mantra, we send out the purification from the image above the crown of our head, and it flows down, the nectar flows down through our body, purifying all the kileshas in ourselves as a friend of the person who's passing away, and also on behalf of the person who's passing away and their family. And all the nectar flows out through our being and is absorbed into the ground of emptiness, into yamantaka, dissolving, and thereby purifying ourselves and others in that process. And all that remains is the purity of rainbow light. Now, I think we were going to have a Vajrasattva mantra. Here it is. Ross is kindly putting it up. So maybe you can just think of that cleansing, and if you know someone who's passing away, just to, in your mind, just to think of them and any of their obstacles that may need to be purified at the same time, and dissolving that nectar through you and purifying any hindrances of body, speech, and mind. Thank you.
Sudosho me va, No sound.
Hey, I can't.
Jangchub, you need to turn your sound on.
Is it on? Is it on? Hello. I'm on.
Yes.
Is it working?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We've got a few technical stuff going on this afternoon. My iPad wouldn't work for a while. So with this Vajrasattva blessing, just in your heart, just think and know that the Vajrasattva energy of just this mantra is so powerful and has so much blessing. This practice is used in the Lonchen Ninti and also as a practice in itself. Vajrasattva can be practiced completely on its own as a refuge and as a complete path. So just remembering that purification for all those transitioning beings, particularly in our war-torn world at the moment, we've got so many beings dying in really unfortunate ways. And we like to keep them in our hearts with this mantra, and may the purification go out also for all beings that we have karmic connection with, and particularly all those beings that are in very difficult situations in Russia and Ukraine, and also in China, that the healing energies can go to those environments for those beings. Thank you very much. And also, of course, for our own obscurations, that we can then benefit the Dharma with clarity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jangchub, and thank you, Jakob. We'll now end the session with a short video clip of Kamalundrup Rinpoche offering chud, another Tantrika practice for preparation for death or for the deceased. We had invited Kamalundrup to be a guest speaker on Living is Dying, but due to being engaged in a extensive European tour, he wasn't able to be with us and kindly sent us this video. And there'll be an opportunity after this to ask Jakob and Jangchub questions. And thank you.
Konde danyam chinye rebaro to de ngengero sanje do barayo.
So are there any questions? Perhaps Jakob, could you please have a look at the chat box?
Sure. There's mainly just persons expressing their gratitude, and particularly to Jangchub. Yeah. No questions thus far.
You're welcome to raise your hand and ask a question. Did you have any more comments you'd like to make, Jakob?
Well, first of all, Tsering, I'd like to thank you for really having held this whole entire program together. And I say this because I've been absent for quite a long. I'm sure this is what everybody is thinking every Sunday, but I just have to say I'm marveling over you conducting this. So Tsering, thank you so much. Jangchub, there's a question for you there. I think it's about the tug drill.
Could you?
Jangchub, there's a question for you about the tug drill, the chakra. You were talking about a chakra, probably this thing that you would wear, right?
Jangchub, you need to unmute, and perhaps Jakob, you could read the question.
Yeah, so the question is, where can we get the chakra that Jangchub that Jangchub was talking about earlier?
I don't know exactly. Normally you can get them from time to time with a lama. We have one particular chakra that could be available. It was printed by the Kensi Foundation a long time ago. I think I still have a copy of it. It can be reproduced. It has a syllable D in the center, and then lots of different mantras, according to purification mantras and so forth.
And Jangchub,
Yeah.
can I just interrupt here? It's actually at the back of the book. You can just copy it in the book.
Oh, fantastic.
And on November the 6th, we'll be spending a session. We'll ask everyone to get the materials together, and we'll be spending a session on making the tug draw the chakra.
There you go. That's as good as it can get, really. Fantastic.
Yes. So it's there. I'm not quite sure the page number, but it's there in the back of the book. Oh, here it is. Page 2.
Everything.
Page 218 in the PDF.
Oh, yeah.
Might be slightly different in the hardcover.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, fantastic.
And we will be going over that, as I said, on November the 6th.
Okay. And this one here, it looks like it's one to wear, like a protection one as well.
Yes. Rinpoche talks quite a bit about Tugdrol in the book, and he said it's also something for the living as well as the deceased.
Okie doke. I got off that. We got answered very well. Thank you, sir. Any more questions, or not so many?
Actually, somebody was just noting how on page 214 there's a much larger image of the chakra.
Yes, that's a full size. Yeah, the other page is where it's how to fold it. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the ones we had earlier were printed. Someone sponsored them, and they were printed on silk, and they were really beautiful to put on the whole body. You could just lay it on the body after, ready for cremation and that. Yeah, really beautiful. So they were an offering by someone. But yes, you can print it on material, or you can print it on paper. They look fantastic on the silk. Okay.
If there aren't any more questions, we might go to the dedication. Please, Ross. This virtuous accumulation of merit we offer, so that all obstacles dissolve, and that at the time of our death each of us may find ease in dying, and swift rebirth in the pure land of great bliss, quickly gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And next week, Dr. Julie Kidd will lead us in a process that she's found helpful, both personally and in her work assisting those with unresolved grief and trauma. It'll be helpful if you can prepare beforehand so that you can arrange to lie back comfortably for this session, with cushions to support each of your arms, and adjust your Zoom screen so that Julie can see you to monitor your progress with the process. And please also have a pen and paper and water to drink close by. Okay, so we look forward to seeing you next week, and take care in the meantime. Okay.
you.